I just want to first start off by saying we have examples of Excel docs. We've done Excel docs a couple times in the past where Todd and other members of our team have gone through and given you guys pretty robust information about how to generate an Excel docs document. So I want to come out of the gate and just say, for video purposes, this is not necessarily a document template workshop for Excel docs. This is going to show a very, very rudimentary template that's just kind of there to get the point across. What we're really going to be showing you today is the process of how to do Excel docs batch and how to set it up so that you can have success with it. So we're going to start from inception. And anytime you might want to install any of our add-ons, the best thing to do is to log into the Juice Cloud. Now, if you don't have an account on the Juice Cloud, please feel free to hit register for access, and we'll make sure you get in there, or ask your admin. And you may have an admin for Quickbase who has an account with us already. Just ask them for access. All you have to do to get access, if I went in and went to our account, because that's really where I'm going to be going, and went to users, you can always invite a user in. So if you're the admin at your organization and you want to have some new people working on document templates, please feel free to do that. It would be great to have people in the cloud that are going to use it. So please, feel free to do that. But once you're in the Juice Cloud, obviously it's in all likelihood not going to show all of these as active, but you will probably see Excel Docs batch over here. And if you already subscribe to Excel Docs and you don't use Excel Docs batch, I just want you to know that this is included in your subscription. And we did have the same conversation in our last office hours regarding Exact Forms Plus. Not many people knew that EF Plus batch was included in your Exact Forms Plus subscription. So we just want to make that point clear again. If you subscribe to Excel Docs already, or you plan to, you are entitled to Excel Docs batch. Even though it's its own tile, it is really the same add-on. It comes from the same bucket. So we're going to go ahead and click into that add-on, and we're going to go ahead and go right into authorize new application. And essentially what we're going to do is we're going to install Excel Docs batch into a new app. So we have a list of user tokens here. You'll likely only have one or two. If you want to use a new user token, enter new user token here, just like any of our other applications where you have entered the user token. That's what you're going to want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the user token that I have most recently, so I know that has access to one of the apps that I want to show you guys. What I'm going to do is I actually downloaded an example from the Exchange, really quick and easy, one of old Kirk Trakey's apps, and we're going to go ahead and just install it right into there. So we have the simple contact manager for office hours, so we're going to go ahead and pick that one, and it says application token, if any. So, we do give you a little quick tidbit. Not everyone wants to read, but if your app does not require application tokens, you can leave this blank. So please don't get wary of that. Many of you guys don't require application tokens anymore. That is more of an old method of authorization. And now you mostly
one point, Matt, before we move off this page, the reason why we asked for the application token here is because when if your app does require tokens, we install a little button that helps you trigger the batch process to run. This is an API edit record. And if you're using an API edit record in any Quickbase application that has application tokens turned on, you will need the application token. So that's why we ask for it. So if for some reason your app does require tokens and you want to trigger the batch processor from our batch table, which Matt's going to show you, you'll need an application token. If you don't have tokens turned on, then it's fine. You won't need one.
That is a more in-depth answer. Thank you, Keith. So yes, so we don't have app tokens turned on, so we should be all good here. So I'm going to hit next. And now this is the page where everyone kind of starts getting a little bit of questions. We have a few options for you to go through here. So we have our auto generate single document version, which essentially allows you to trigger a document to get generated, an Excel document to get generated based off of a change in your Quickbase form. And then you have our bulk document generation version. And that bulk document generation version allows you to generate multiple records worth of files with one button click, with one execution. So we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to show you guys the setup to this simple contact manager. And then I actually have another application that I had already set up just so that's a little bit cleaner and we can show you guys a little bit more of the tools that we have available for the bulk document generation, especially. So for the simple contact manager one, you might just want to pick something like activities. And if you don't have a file attachment field already, you could hit create new field, and that's going to make you a new file attachment field for the Excel docs document to be stored in. And then the same thing with date. We do already have 2 date fields here, but for this Excel docs, I want to be, logging its date by itself. So I'm going to pick create new field as well here. And then you have 2 options for the filtering criteria. Now, this is where I hear from a lot of clients that they don't necessarily know what they want to do here. If you select a report, and I'll just quickly show you maybe in this Documents app, if you select a report, it's going to ask you which report. Now, what we end up doing is we look at all the reports in the table that you chose, and it's going to give you a list of those reports. So that's essentially what you're going to want to do. You're going to pick that, but that can be changed. A lot of clients are like, well, I don't know if that's what I want to do long term. No worries. It could always be changed. So you can just pick one for now, and you can always change it again later, like I said, or you could filter by query. Now, this is something where, we do have Dylan's query builder, which we may be, implementing sometime in the future. But for this, it's regular Quickbase's query syntax here. So you would select a field to be querying off of if you had like activity date is greater than or before a certain date. If you're doing customer activities, that might be the best thing for you. Of course, each person's query is going to be very different, so I don't want to give you too much of a granular example. So just know that this is just building out a Quickbase query. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the easy route. I'm going to pick a report. And then I'm going to go ahead and it says either use your standard template or upload your own. Now, when you upload your own, it's just asking you to upload a file. This is the same through all of our add-ons that have a wizard that you need a document template for. So everyone should be pretty familiar with that. And I'm just going to use a standard template for now. Now, the last option here is merge output files. And this says check this checkbox to merge generated files. So essentially what that'll do is that'll take all of your generated documents. So let's say you generate 10 Excel docs documents for separate records. It'll actually merge those 10 records together into one file at the end of this. So this is some additional parameters. If you check this checkbox, it'll put those parameters in for you. So I'm going to go ahead and check that for now. And the merge file name, I'll just call all, files. And I'll finish. And this is going to go ahead and do that installation into that simple contact manager. Once that's done, I'm going to just show you guys what that setup looks like. And, you get this success message. So it tells you, hey, this is what's been set up. Here are the tables that were created. So I'm going to go ahead and close that out. That's really all we need from the cloud today. But I'm going to go ahead and just show you guys that when I hit refresh here, we have all the tables needed. So you can actually see that this application did not have document templates or document subtable Excel yet. So we put in both of those tables, which if you already had Excel docs installed, in all likelihood are already there. If not, probably wasn't working. And then you also have now Excel docs batch processing and Excel docs batch processing logs. So I just wanted to show you guys that quick setup. What you might see here is, it's in the new form and everything like that. I haven't played around with that too much yet, so I kind of wanted to have something already set up on the side. So I put it in already. Sorry, back in the old form, guys. I know that, Quickbase has the new forms out, but we wanted to put it in here so that we can give you guys kind of a familiar experience for what we have in the past. We'll be starting to dive into new forms soon in the future, but for now, we're just going to stick with the old stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and give you guys an explanation to what we did here. So if I end up pulling up that simple document back though, just so we can kind of compare it, we had a bunch of stuff straight down the line that gets added: name, Excel docs batch processing, trigger field, execute batch date, etc. So we just kind of set it up in a little bit of an easier way to read. So we have the name of the Excel docs batch processing. Now, in many cases, you only need to have one record in this table. And then you have your Excel docs batch processing arguments, which is really going to tell our servers what to generate for you. And I'm going to go through exactly each one of these parameters so you have an idea of what's going on. Then from there, you have the trigger field, and the trigger field is very important. That's going to control the whole process of when to execute it. I'm going to go into that in a minute. We also have our merged file, and now that's because we did include the merge parameters. So you're going to see all those files getting generated together, as well as the date. A view records button, which is actually going to go and look back at the report that we're using. And I'm going to show you guys how to customize this. Then as well, we have our logs that just tell us when did you run or when did you generate this batch. It's always good to have that to keep track of who's using it and when they're using it. And then at the bottom here, Keith was nice enough to make me some variable reports here. I've had some clients in recent days who have asked me for that. So I'm going to go through how to make this batch arguments up here variable so that end users can change what the output's going to be, can change what documents they want to generate. So let's jump into it. So I'm going to first start and I'm going to edit the field properties of this batch processing arguments. And for many of you, this should look very, very familiar. A lot of these parameters are the same for really Excel docs. So we have our client ID, which for everyone, it's going to be different. For us, it's Q2. Our app ID, which is just a simple formula. The DB ID of the table that we're generating from, as well as the document templates table, and then which document template we're using, that TPID parameter. And that's super important. That's essentially saying which template to use. So we're using document template number 1. Again, that's covered many, many times in some of our previous Excel docs sessions. So if you guys aren't aware of that, as well as maybe FN, I definitely recommend to go check out those older Excel docs videos going through the basics. But those are all here. And then we have the big one here, which is our MSQRY parameter. And we actually see that we're referencing that field that Keith was able to make for me. So MSQRY, I'm going to jump into. That's essentially telling us which report or which query to use. So if you remember when I was going through the cloud setup, I was saying, okay, what records do I want to generate this batch for? So Keith was nice enough to make me a field so that we can show how to make it dynamic, and I'm going to dive into that. But this is going to be based off of a user selection. And then we also have our file attachment field from your destination table. So if you notice, it's 18 and 19 for the file attachment and the date. If I just quickly exit this in a new tab and go to my destination table, the documents where we're actually going to be generating it. If I just jump into one of these quick, you'll see that this is field 18, our file attachment field, and this is field 19. So just like regular Excel docs, but you're pointing it to another table. So you're saying, I want to generate a document in 18 and update the date field in 19. So that's why we have 18 and 19 there. Doc format we have as PDF. And now the reason why we have this as PDF right now is you can only generate a merged document with PDFs. So if your intention in the end of the day is to merge them together, it must be using a PDF. If your intention is to keep them all as separate documents, you can have it as an Excel document, no worries, or a CSV as well. App token, like Keith went through and mentioned before, thankfully he gave a better explanation than I did. App token is only needed if you have certain, authorization that you need to run the API edit record. So if you need to put that in, you'll put that in here. We do not.
Matt, one second on the app token. You don't need the app token here. The app that's an old parameter for executing the batch. Yes, like that is right there is where the app token would be needed. Again, if your application requires tokens, as you can see, we're running the API edit record query there on line 2. You can see that's running the actual Quickbase API edit record command. So if you're going to do that and your app requires tokens on line 5, you would have to put your token in. So if you forgot during the wizard setup to include it, that's fine. You can always add it here. So you just edit this field and add it. So if your app does require tokens, put it right there. Don't put a user token there, put an application token. And it's just really to be able to support the edit record from to work. But you don't need that app token in our exact Excel docs batch parameters. You don't need that there.
Okay, good to know. Thanks for cutting me off so I could breathe for a second too. Yes, so we're going to jump back into this execute batch in a second, but this is essentially saying update a text field, and I'm going to show you guys that in just a moment. It's this trigger field. But let's just jump back into these parameters for a second. We were at app token, and again, that app token, like Keith just said, you don't need it. Now, you have your merge DBID, and the reason why we're using this DBID formula here is we're saying we're merging it back to this table, your current table, and then it's asking you which record, merge record ID, do you want to merge to? And as you saw earlier, this was just record 1, so we're just going to include 1. And this is which file, or which record, which field do you want to merge these into, which one's going to have the file attachment. So if I go to the batch processing on this page, so you can see it side by side, we're saving it to field 15 if we're going to be merging it together. So we identify 15 here, and then merge FN. That's just merge file name. All docs is what we called it here. Just something simple. Just as a note, please always remember this: you cannot have spaces whenever you're doing any of our batches. So please keep that in mind. If you have spaces, it's not going to work. So if you see a space here, just take it out or use an underscore. That'd be great. And then merge DT, merge date, very simple. That's just the date field. Again, we have the date field here, field 13. Then we have some of the batch processing parameters that we have identified separately at the bottom here. We have the logs, and this is important. We have the logs DBID, which you just do the DBID of the Excel docs batch processing logs table, which is this one here. And for those of you who don't know where to get that DBID from, you likely don't have to. We'll likely already put it in there for you. But if you have to get it and you don't know where it is, you would go to advanced settings and then find the table alias at the bottom here. It's pretty unknown that that's available for you, but you could always identify a table that way as well. If not, you could also use the regular DBID, I believe. Yes, so that's just a way to find that there. Just wanted to point that out. But anyway, we're pointing at that alias here for that logs DBID. Then we're saying, okay, which record are we relating this to? And then what is the trigger field? Now, this is Excel docs batch trigger field. That's TFLD. And that's what Keith was kind of talking about before. So we'll talk about that. That's field 8. And then the very last 2, it's saying, okay, is it for this table again? And then for type equals Excel docs batch. This is really important. Please make sure this is your last parameter. And you might want to just note that Excel docs batch type equals Excel docs batch must be your last parameter. So please keep that way. It'll make things much easier. But as I was mentioning before, we had this trigger field equals 8. And we'll go right into this. And you'll see that field 8 is our trigger field. Now, it's really important to understand that this is actually what's controlling the whole process. So right now we have process completed. If I were to hit execute batch, you'll actually see that it changes right now, right away, to batch execution requested. So that's really what's going on when you hit that execute batch button. And it's really important that you know why, or that this is really should be your trigger and how to clear it out. That's a common support question we get, is their batch process got stuck and they didn't know how to refresh it. One easy way to do that is if this doesn't work for you, you refresh your screen a bunch of times and nothing works, you can actually edit this field and clear it out. And that would allow you to restart it. Now, I did get a success message because everything ran in that quick amount of time that we were talking. But if you needed to clear it out so that you can run it after an unsuccessful attempt, you can clear that out here. That's just something we get somewhat often. So if you see that it's stuck on requested, not process completed, but requested, then that's one way to clear it out. I'm also going to be showing you, after I go through the rest of these, the email notification. And the email notification is what's actually going to trigger this to go out. That's done and triggered by this trigger field. But quickly, I just want to show you what's going on behind the scenes as we were looking at before. This quick formula is made just to say, if the trigger field contains requested, then we're going to edit this record and have batch execution requested to text now. Again, that app token if needed, and it's just going to redirect you back to the page. This is just a simple button. So if, there's really no need to change that. It's going to be pointing to the right field, which is field ID 8. And every time you click this, it's going to update this trigger field. Now, the rest of these fields in here, I can go through and talk about, but I think it makes most sense to talk about how you're going to do the notification. So one thing I always try to point people to, especially for the notification, is on our website, and you go to help, we have pretty clear instructions on how to do the email notification, create email notification. So I'm just kind of going to go through that again. And now you notice that this is for Excel docs batch processing. It goes through step by step. So Justin, maybe you want to just throw this in the chat. This is the exact steps that you want to follow. So I already have this created, but I'm going to go through again how to do it. So you hit settings, notifications, subscriptions, reminders. And now you see I do have one already. So I'm going to say, let's just pretend like I don't. New notification. You're going to make it open. Super important that you put it as open. Now, if you put it as open and you save, and then it says you get an error message, and let's see if at the bottom it includes this error message. If you get this error message, just please send Quickbase a quick support message that says, please enable open email notifications in my realm. That's all you need to say. They'll do it for you. But you'll essentially have open email notifications here. You'll say, Excel docs batch. I like to always include myself when I'm notifying. And the reason why you do that is because then you know if your trigger is working correctly. So you include yourself. And then as you can read through these instructions, you'll actually notice after you pick this step, we've entered the following email address, exceldocsbatch@exceldocsbatch.quickbasetools.com. Just like kind of any of our other batch processing emails, we have a unique one for each one, but they all follow the same format. So exceldocsbatch@exceldocsbatch.quickbasetools.com. And then you're going to do whenever an Excel docs batch process is modified and any of the following field changes. Now, remember, the whole point of this is to use that trigger field. So we're going to use that trigger field, and then we're going to say when trigger field, where'd it go? Trigger field contains requested. Now that's super important. You want to make sure you have it look exactly like this. For any time you're generating an Excel docs batch in bulk, or even EFP batch in bulk, you want to make sure that this is your notification when. Notification when is another way of saying, trigger when, execute on what terms. So just please have it like this, and you will have success.
Matt, I want to reiterate that one because it's important. If you don't put a condition on there and you just left it when the trigger field is modified, when our process finishes, we update the trigger field to say that its process is complete. That's another update. So if we don't put a condition on it, it'll fire the batch processor again, and then again, and then again, and then again. So we just want to be careful that you always put a trigger a condition on that so that it won't fire when it shouldn't fire.
That is, do not take that lightly. But yes, if as long as you have it set up like this, you will have success. And then again, for the custom message, you could always just say Excel docs, batch, and then dash company name is usually the best way to do it. If there is an error, that'll help us with error handling and just find you guys quicker. Quickbase now includes a bunch of hoopla in this custom message. We just ask you to take it all out. So just delete that whole thing. And what you're going to end up doing is you're going to find your Excel docs batch processing arguments. And the one with arguments in it's the one you want. And that's it. That's all you need to include. You don't need to write anything else in that email notification, just Excel docs batch processing arguments. And then you just scroll up, double check everything, and you can hit save. Now, I do have the exact same thing twice here. So I'm just going to go ahead and shut that off. Again, if you ever need to shut off an email notification, that checkbox here makes it nice and easy. And when you come back here, the next time you click this button, like we just mentioned, as long as the trigger field contains requested, it's going to kick off the process. So you'll notice in about 10 to 30 seconds, depending on how many files you're generating, that this is going to generate and then merge actually to this section here. So really quick right now. So it worked like that. You can see this is when it came in, and we have our all docs PDF here. Now, this is not the only place that it generated, and this is again where there's some confusion or discrepancies. It's also generating a single file for every document, for every file, for every record in this documents table. So you can see all of these updated at 2:28 p.m. Eastern. So these are all of your new files for each record. So we just want to make that clear. Now let's go back to our batch processing. And you will see you get your completed message. So you can kind of keep track of what's going on here and, when you're generating them, and you could include all other fields in this batch processing arguments as well if you want to assign it to individual people. But some people might not want to generate based off of one report. Just like we've shown in the past, we show you how to vary the template. So, I know this might be small for you folks, but that TPID parameter, we show you how to vary that. We use a very, very similar process to vary the report that we're looking at for this MSQRY parameter. So this is what I was referring to before, as Keith was able to set something up for me quickly before we started. We actually have how to vary the report query. So if I hit edit on this record, and this could be any of your end users, and all you have to do is maybe show a departments field or a type field or something that would include text that would make sense to your end users to select from what types of reports they want to use. So maybe they want to generate a report for back office or finance, let's say. So if they have a report for finance, it's now going to be generating report 18. And where do we get report 18? If I go back, and I know I'm bouncing around a little bit, but if I go back to my documents, report 18 is one of these many reports. So let's see, maybe it's this one. Yep, report 18. And the way you know that is QID at the top. The other way you can find that is if you hit settings, reports and charts, you have your report IDs here. So if you ever wanted to find where the reports are, this one, report ID 18. Again, that's also found just right in that at the top, QID equals 18. So you can find that there. So if I go back to here, now I selected finance. So for me, that's going to do report 18. If you notice, this whole thing becomes yellow because it actually has a change here. MSQRY equals 18. So now, if I look at report 18, there's only these three records, when you hit execute batch, should be generated. So we could take a look at our old merged PDF, and you could see that, we have a ton of pages here. This was just a simple PDF, like I said. So we had 21 pages for 21 records. Now, if I hit refresh, the process completed again. This should be only 3 pages. No, is it?
It's the caching issue.
Caching issue?
File attachments.
Let's go ahead and look. If you hit that, just so you guys know, you can actually see already by the size. If you guys ever have that issue yourselves, clicking too fast like me, if you just hit this revision history, this clock, it'll show you the old revisions and the newest. So this current one, only 8 KB. So that's going to be a little different. Whoa. And you can see that there's just the 3. So that's just a quick way of how you can vary the reports. I was actually on a call this morning with an individual who was looking to do that. So let's just go ahead and take a peek behind the scenes of how this works. So what we essentially do is we have this MSQRY parameter looking at reports to use. So we have ampersand, and then we're referencing reports to use. So let's look, reports to use. edit this, and we have just a quick case formula that says, case the department is equal to finance, show 18. If it's website design, show 17. If it's operations, show 16. If it's other, show 19. All else, show 1. So basically, if blank, show 1, which is that list all. So you'd want to have something set up like this. Again, if you want to have it vary so that your end users can just select which report they want to generate rather than having to change it manually in that settings, they might not even have the correct permissions to change it manually. So this is a good way to keep things orderly, to make sure that everyone can only edit the things that they need to, and they don't mess up these batch processing parameters. And also, when you come back here, you'll see that only these 3 records got updated. You can see 231. So this might be the only report they can see. Imagine this was 40 records instead of 3. They don't want to click generate, and that might take a little time. So by pressing just one button, they can save a lot of time.
And again, then view records field there too, Matt. I modified that to
you did?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So I get yeah, go ahead.
That's a good point. So we make a field for you here called records to be processed. And this is actually going to look at, okay, which reports or which report are you going to be looking at? So behind the scenes here, and you did already modify that, so thank you, Keith, but we likely would default this URL to include QID equals whichever one you identify through the wizard. So if you identify, the list all report, it's going to say QID equals 1. If you do, report 10, it's going to say QID equals 10. What Keith was nice enough to do here was to do ampersand report to use, so that if I'm using, this finance report and hit view records, it takes me to category 2. If I edit this, and maybe I make it other, and I view records, it's going to take me to others and show me this report. And you guys can see that, these documents were not generated. So that makes life a lot easier. And again, if I were to execute this, now again, I'm using the others. The one other thing I wanted to mention is that if you're viewing this from this view and you just show that departments report, you could always grid edit it and allow your users to choose the departments that way. That might make their life a little bit easier. And once you have that saved, it's going to make that change. So it's going to say, okay, now we're going to be using report 16 instead, and they can execute it right from here. Now, it does take them back into the record, but it might save them a little bit of time if they want to do it that way. So that was a lot. I'm going to give everyone a moment, take a breath, just like me. Does anyone have any questions based off of what they just saw? Okay, good. So one other thing I just wanted to mention before we ended, when you make the document templates table, I've noticed this with a lot of clients, so I want to kind of be stern about this. I really, really recommend editing the default report. So if you take the default report settings, I really recommend including record ID at the top here, and especially if you're using Excel docs, take out exact forms plus version, take out document template DBID, Excel sheet number you're going to want, document template subtable Excel DBID, you really don't need that hypothetically to show on the default report. So I'm going to take that out here. And then, for the document subtable Excel, this is just giving you an ability to add that. But now you're really going to want to use the configurator. So anyone who's newer, you have this Excel docs configurator. I really recommend just using that to add new subtable records. We do still give you the option here. But if you use the Excel docs configurator, you're going to have a much better time. I promise you, it's awesome. It's everything you could ever imagine and more. So you're going to use that if you want to add new subtable records or just to edit your master C list. Either one, this is the tool for you. Just like an EFP, if you have EFP, this is just like our subtable configurator for EFP. It's going to be everything you need and more. And we do have previous videos on that as well. So if you want to learn more about this subtable configurator for Excel, definitely check out those past videos. They're going to be very helpful for you.
And Matthew, if you don't have the configurator already, can you get it?
Yep. Good question, Todd. Yes, you can get it. So if you don't have this button, but you subscribe to Excel Docs right now, you can get it. If you navigate back to the Juice Cloud, hit home, open up Excel docs. Give it a second to load for us because we have a ton of applications. But hit authorize new application, and then that might have been too quick for you guys. But you guys see here, you're back in Excel docs. Hit authorize new application. You're gonna pick your user token. I'll pick that one. You're gonna select your application. And then you're gonna hit authorize only, no setup, because this is assuming that you already have Excel docs in that application. So please make sure to do that. When you hit finish, it's gonna say Excel docs has been authorized. I mean, this might not say that because we just went through it. Great. So it's saying that this is authorized. Great, you're good to go. Now you have that, that configurator tool for you. If it's for a new application, just go through the whole setup as you normally would. But again, if it's for an application that already has Excel docs in it, that's what you're going to want to do. So that basically sums up everything for the bulk document generation version. The other thing we can quickly go into, which I don't know if I'm going to, is the auto document generation version. It's very, very similar. I mean, we might as well since we're here, but I'm going to pause again. Does anyone have any questions? Concern? No? All right. Also, refresh button at the top here. If anything ever doesn't look right to you, if you hit the refresh button at the top, it's probably going to fix all your problems. So you could see it. It's kind of flashing over here. Just try to make sure you hit that if you ever have any issues. Excel docs batch again now. And now we already have it in our document library. So let's just set up another table. This time we're going to choose auto. So we're going to choose auto generate a single document. We're going to do it in our documents table. We'll save it to that Excel docs 2 file attachment, and we'll use the Excel doc date time field. We want to have it as an XLS, and we'll just use the standard template for now. And I'll hit finish. Now we could also have use an existing template. That does happen for EFB. So now this should add the batch processing arguments to that table, which it did. So now you have your Excel docs batch processing arguments here. So for this one, it's going to be very, very similar to what we just went through, except this should look like a more traditional Excel docs setup. So you're going to have your TPID is equal to 1. You'll have your FN, which is your file name. And again, you're just pointing at those tables. So you have your DBID, the document templates table, the table you're currently on, which is called document libraries in this example. You're doing it for this record. You're saving it to file attachment field 23, date field 24. The format is XLSX. App tokens not included. And then type, like I said before, type equals EF plus batch. Please have that be your last parameter whenever you're doing anything with batch. And then the very last thing, all you're going to want to do is create an email notification. I don't necessarily think I need to be redundant, but I'll do it anyway. Now, email notification, create one, open, auto gen, Excel doc. I'm going to email myself because I always like to do that, so I know that that went through. Again, once you do it for the first couple times and you're happy with it, you don't need to keep yourself on there. However, I like to do it so I know whenever anyone generates one of my auto-generated documents. So I go back wherever the heck I was. Wow, I got a lot of tabs open. How'd that happen? I'm going to paste in my Excel docs batch email address whenever a document is modified. And this is where it's a little different. So now you're not in that batch processing table. This is where you want to set up your trigger. You don't know necessarily, everyone's trigger might be a little different. Something that's likely not going to get you in a loop would be best. But maybe you want to have it generate whenever, a category gets updated. So whenever a category is equal to, maybe it's a call center. So whenever there's someone makes a new call center document, you want to generate a document for that. So that's the only time it's going to generate auto.
The common thing we see is, maybe if you're changing a status from active to 1 or closed. That would maybe want you to create a document once that happens. So if you had a status field on your table, you might want to trigger it off of that. So again, it's always important to make sure conditions are there so that you don't get yourself into a loop.
Right. And if you didn't know what the word conditions was coming from, and any of the following conditions are true, and all the conditions are true, excuse me, it can be any. But yes, that's super important for any time you're sending up an email notification, even if it's not for one of our batch processing add-ons. Please make sure that your email notifications are correct so that your end users aren't getting peppered by emails. Excel Docs Auto, we'll call this subject, and you do dash company name again. And then again, we got a lot of hoopla here. We're just going to take that out for this example, and you're going to find arguments, Excel Docs batch processing arguments. Now you have your open, name it, who you're sending it to, when should we send it, and then here's our custom message. Save that. And now hypothetically, if all goes well, if I change my category here, instead of website design, or is it category website design, we said call center, hypothetically, that should work. And it's going to save to this record. Now, the reason why I say hypothetically is I did not take a diver look into here to see, I believe all these parameters work. Again, no spaces, please, 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 no spaces. Always good to check that. This is the right DB ID, so all should be well. And now you see a document was generated here at, let's see what the date time. Here you go, 2:44.
Now, if you did need to have spaces in your file names, you can do it. It's a little more advanced. You have to kind of encapsulate it in double quotes. And whenever you're using double quotes in a formula field, you have to escape them, which really means you're going to need to put a backslash. Is it backslash or forward slash? I forget.
I think it's a forward
slash,
slash, actually.
And then put the double quote, put your name, and then slash again, and then double quotes. Then you can pass in spaces in the names.
Right. Well, just for continuity, here's that last document again, super duper simple. We said that it was going to be super duper simple. We just wanted to kind of put something on the board. More or less, this session was to show you guys the setup process of how to get your documents to generate. If you guys need help with your document templates for Excel, as Justin was putting in the chat, those older videos will be the ones for you. Those have breakdowns of exactly how to set up your Excel documents the way you're expecting. Like we mentioned a few minutes ago, that Excel Docs configurator is going to be your best friend if you're doing a new setup. So please use that. But this should go through the process for both bulk document generation and auto document generation for Excel Docs batch. We hope you guys get value out of using this, especially for those of you who already use Excel Docs. Go ahead and give this a shot. It's going to be very useful for you, and it's not going to cost you anything else. So it's worth including.